the big news is standard rotating Aftermath fell like a fish.
Yep.
And
now you need to expand what you mean when you said Aftermath felt like a fish.
Felt like a fish? I meant flopped like a fish.
Okay,
but
no,
I didn't say that.
Aftermath felt like a fish.
It felt like a fish
That
in
is
the
our
face.
official opinion on Aftermath.
Have you not been hit in the face with like just a big old wet
Salmon,
fish?
yeah.
Yeah.
Big old halibut.
And then they were like, that's going to be $3.99.
How about
please.
that?
Well, that's the show, guys.
Okay. We'll be back next week.
We crushed it. Welcome in, everybody. It's All Cards Considered. I'm Jesse Batten.
And I'm Dylan Cassidy.
And we are your magical hosts. Welcome to the show. We got totally sidetracked with all of this, like, newsy news. Because, underneath it all, I love March of the Machines draft.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's an amazing format.
It's my favorite since Kamigawa.
Do you like it better than Kamigawa or less?
Hard to say. I'd have to taste one and then the other.
Yeah, do a blind taste test. Just stick those cards in your mouth. And, yeah. I agree. I think it's definitely one of the best since I've been regularly drafting Magic. Might be edging out Kamigawa in some places.
Yeah.
Although at this point, Kamigawa has cemented itself as not just one of the best draft formats, but like having some of the most impactful cards. Right? Because we're all talking about Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Channel lands also are just out of this world.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that set. But we wanted to get back to talking about Mom Draft and give our thoughts on the color pairs.
Yeah. Let's rate Mom's pairs.
Where do you want to start? This show's been very sexual for a Magic the Gathering podcast.
Well, if you could see us, you would understand why.
Yeah, exactly. So Mom's pairs, do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite? Should we start at the beginning or should we start at the end? I feel like I always hated when they told me like, number one first whenever there was like a list. I wanted the suspense.
Let's go top to or bottom
start
to
with
top.
the stinkers?
Yeah, start with the stinkers. And, I will say that there's very few stinkers in this.
Agreed.
Of this format. And it's something I think about a lot that like there's not a lot of duds. It's dependent on your deck, but like just about every card has a place where it shines in some archetype. I mean, there's obviously exceptions. There are some shitty cards, but for the most part, everything's pretty playable.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that I've had winning decks in all of these archetypes, regardless. Like some of the archetypes, I mean, that we're going to put at the bottom of the list are ones I actually really like playing too. So it's kind of interesting. But let's start all the way at the bottom. We have a little bit more than 10 archetypes in this format too. There's a couple of like hidden, 5 color. So
3 color.
Yeah. I think there's actually 2 versions of blue-green. We were talking about this before. There's blue-green transform, which is the one that it says on the tin. But then when you fuck around a little bit, you figure out that blue-green play all the bombs is very viable too. Yeah. So basically like what Nantacorn did. So all the way down at the bottom, is it green-white tokens for you, or is it like the transform deck?
I think maybe it's backup.
Backup.
Which is
red-white.
Not that backup is a bad mechanic. Backup is like an all-star mechanic, and all of the cards with backup are great, and that's kind of the problem. Yeah. All of the cards with backup are better than the whatever doesn't have backup in the pack, so they always get picked. Yep. They fit off-color really well, so it's really hard to build a good backup deck synergizing off the hoplite, I think.
I've seen surprisingly few hoplites too.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it's because people are picking them and they're excited to play it. I know both of us looked at that card and said, this is going to be great. I can't wait to play backup and just scoot under people. But the few times I drafted that card, it doesn't seem to come together. I think one big problem with backup is that it's so much an aggressive deck. Like that's the only direction that it can go, because usually what you want to do is put the counter on one of your other creatures and start attacking, and it's
you
just
want
like
to put it on somebody that can already attack. And,
yeah. And so if they remove one of your creatures or bounce one of your creatures, you can just end up in a really bad time. And backup suffers from the same issue that the green-white tokens deck suffers from, which is there's a lot of bounce in this set.
Yeah.
So if you spend a lot of energy incubating a 5/5 that gets bounced, that's like a lot of mana lost. Same deal with making like a really tall flyer or something.
Conversely, backup is like actually, I think, the best archetype to play into bounce, because you get stuff when you play your cards again.
That's true. And you can design your deck in such a way that bouncing anything is painful, and they'll be forced to do it, and you can get some extra value. So I think that's kind of where you want to be. Some really good cards, though, like Bola Slinger, the one that
Bola
taps
Slinger
down something.
is an all-star, but he's so hard to get copies of.
The Knight deck wants him, even though he's not a Knight. And the Black-White deck loves him. And so,
what is our like main kit in this color?
Sure. I think that when I've had solid decks with this, oddly, it's sort of a red-blue card, but the Kenra Spellspear, the 2/2 that has prowess, like that's really good. Boonbringer Valkyrie is the kind of thing that will obviously pull you in this direction. And so, like, if you open something like Elspeth or one of the white bombs, and you feel like Knights aren't open, I could see myself going into red-white. There's also the red dinosaur, the like rampaging something or other. It's
ravaging raptor.
Yes, yeah. If it attacks a battle, then it can deal damage to your opponent at the same time.
The Questing Beast 2.0.
The Questing Beast 2.0, yes. And so like that one's pretty solid in there.
That card's great.
Stoke the Flames is good.
Huge. That's a great card for the reach that it also provides.
Yeah. And also Invasion of Regatha, the battle that deals 4 to an opponent, can be a good way to end a game. I don't think this deck wants to attack battles.
No.
So
I think if you pick that up, it's going face.
Exactly. That's what you're picking it up for.
Your Stoke the Flame, I mean, maybe it's going to be clutch removal, but I hold that until it's like, are you within kill range?
Yeah. Oh, also, of course, Gold Warden, the 1-drop 0/1 that has backup and passes its tokens when it dies. If you can build like a deck that has 3 or 4 of those,
interesting,
they can actually pass their tokens 3 or 4 times each, and you can get an extreme amount of value out of them.
Yeah.
And they're also really good in Aluris deck.
I bet.
Just bringing them back again.
Oh yeah, if I'm gonna do backup and I can have Aluris as my companion, there we go.
That's a good way to go. Yeah, but I think that it struggles for all of the reasons that we've laid out, and it's probably the deck that I've played the least.
Yeah, so. It was the one I was most excited about, but it's just so hard to get it all to come together because the cards are in demand by other decks, and the like signpost itself is kind of like, it takes a lot of work to get anything out of it.
Yeah. I would say that, let's say number 9, but number 9 for me is probably the tokens deck. I just haven't played it very much.
Green-white tokens.
And this is my version of backup for you. Yeah. I looked at that deck and I thought, oh, there's a lot of this that like is appealing to me. The Brazen Borrower, the uncommon. I remember us being kind of like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But when I actually played it, I did the combo with Invasion of Moag where it got like 40 counters all at once. And I was like, this thing is solid. If you have 2 of them, you really can storm a game. But like people said at the beginning, it played out to be that most of the time when you use your big counter payoff, you don't have enough creatures to put the counters on. You have like 2 creatures, and so each of them getting a +1/+1 counter isn't really worth 4 mana or all the work you're doing. And then the bounce thing. Bounce. One big threat kind of isn't enough to do it in this set where there's a lot of bombs.
Yeah, you need to have... I just think that there is not enough stuff to go wide. It's, like in this deck, you know what it needs? It's the Bola Slinger. You need so many Bola Slingers, and that's what the other deck needs, and that's what the Knights deck wants too. So it's the like really critical commons are just not available to reliably get. And I guess the other big cards in this format or this like theme, the green-white counters, is Kami. Right, is get more your hardened scales effect, and then the rare you'd really love to pick up is Ozolith.
Sure, Ozolith, and
that
those are cards
backbreaking if it just exists.
And like I feel like we've said it, but just disclaimer again: if you open Ozolith, I'm not saying don't play green-white.
Definitely,
like, you can have a great green-white deck, and you should take Galta.
Botanical Brawler is great too, and
it really is.
Yeah,
that's like one of the better signpost uncommons, I would say.
Yeah.
The problem is the rest of the deck. And yeah, the Tribute to the World Tree, if I opened that, I would be very open to playing green-white.
A mostly green deck or green-white.
Yeah.
Anything, just go wide.
I don't think it's unplayable. It's just like, man, the pieces get packed. And it does have this like inherent weakness in terms of its game plan.
So both of these, I think part of the problem is that the white common pool is a little bit shallower than some of the other colors. Yeah,
and white is also, it's very aggressive, but it's also kind of confused. It has a lot of incubate in it. I'm just my perception. It seems like it has more incubate than some of the other colors.
Yeah,
and incubate's not a particularly, it's kind of slow for aggression.
Yeah.
So you can end up in a blue-white Knights deck that's like half incubate, half Knights, and that's kind of not the best place to be.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of happened to us when we tried drafting Knights last.
Yeah.
Next I would probably say either the green blue transform deck or the white black Phyrexians for number 8.
So one of the things that I have been doing while approaching March of the Machines drafts, which is very different than a lot of other drafts, which is I will pick a lane and try to stay in that and like pick my color so no one else gets into it. I a lot of the time do approach this more from like, what is the broadest color I can pick? If I have a 3-color card in my pack, I love to pick that and think, okay, well, one of these colors is probably going to be my main color, and leaves me more open to be like, I've got this great Thalion the Gitrog monster that I'm definitely going to play, and one of these colors is going to be my main color, and the others might be splashes. But I love to work outside in rather than like inside my main color out in this format.
No, that's actually really good advice. And one of the potential pitfalls with that is that blue and black are so strong that it can be sometimes hard to tell if those colors are actually open or not.
Yeah.
So, in general, reading signals is
so
less of a science and more of a evolving skill. But
9 champion.
Yeah, seeing a breeding champion
late
pick 6 does not necessarily mean
that
blue
it's
is open, and I've been fooled
cards,
by that a couple times.
It is tempting to think it is. But
if you have a bunch of blue cards, you should take that breeding champion
100%.
And stay open. And it's a similar philosophy to if you are trying to play lots of colors. Take that pick that fixing early, because there are so many playables. It'll all work out in the end most of the time. Was it Transform or Phyrexians?
I think Transform is next for me because I haven't played it yet.
Oh, really?
I want to, but I've just never been in a situation where like that's where the draft is leading me. Mostly because I want to see what's the herd beast.
Oh,
I want to see him do I want to see him do work, and I think he's not a bad card. Like a 7/5 menace that you can get out on turn 6. Well, that's kind of late, but I think there's always a bunch of them going around.
I died to it once.
Yeah,
and I was like, wow, a 7/5 menace is pretty tough. Then I figured out Afara's Dispersal is like the best thing in the world, because they play it for 5. They spend like another 5 mana and 2 life, transform it, you bounce it to their hand, and now they got to spend 2 more turns. So I think that's a card that's a little bit too slow. And in general, in this format, you don't want to be playing 5 mana clunkers. Like they need to do something when they come down at 5 mana.
Sure.
And that's like more true here than normal.
Yeah.
The guys from Limited Level Ups had a good point where they were like, Renata's not a good card. And I looked at Renata. She's the one where every creature, whenever you play a creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like 4 mana.
Maybe in the green-white deck that no one else wants her for.
Seems like it would be good. And I mean, actually, it just seems like it would be a good green card, because they don't even have to be green. Just every creature you play gets a counter. I'm in. The problem is that at 4 mana, your opponent usually still has removal in hand, and they're just going to remove Renata, and then you have spent your entire turn really doing nothing. If they can remove it for 2 or 1 and then also play a 2-drop, that's where a lot of the games are lost on like turn 3 and 4.
All the best removal in the set basically comes online at 4: Deadly Derision, Temporal Cleansing, and Stoke the Flames.
Exactly.
And
then it's about, if I've maneuvered myself into a board state where I'm a little ahead of you, and I probably am if I just removed your creature, my turn 4 is bashing you for a bunch of damage, and your turn 5 is trying to figure out how to like get back into it. And Renata has pretty low stats on 17 lands.
Makes sense.
So it kind of
I think I would only play her if I had high token synergy or counter synergy in a green-white deck.
Yeah.
That's the only time I think I put her in.
He was like, I try not to play her.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. I thought that was a good card. I was taking it pretty early in my drafts, and that really switched. This was very early in the format. It kind of switched my order up. But with blue-green, I think that...
You do have access to blue, which we love in this format.
I think it's higher. I would put this one more like rank 7, just because you have a lot of flexibility when you're building it. I
think it could be good. I just haven't played it yet, so I don't really know.
Sure. It's probably going to splash a 3rd color.
Yes.
And you can end up going all the way to 5 color or the blue-green play the bomb. So the fact that you have that in your back pocket makes this one a little bit more resilient.
You get a Vorbergmost, you're now in Teamer. You get, what's the Sultai guy? I don't know. It's so easy to play 3 colors if you're in blue and green.
Yeah. And I had a really good deck where I had 2 Herbology Instructors, the 1/3 that flips.
That's a great card.
Yeah. Tawashi, which let me draw a card whenever I flip.
Transform, yep.
Transformed a thing, a couple of Incubate cards, and then an Imperiosaur to finish it out. And I opened a Sunfall in pack 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to play that.
Why not?
That's not even that hard to play. And I was able to fix for it and play it on turn 5, no problem, multiple times.
Beautiful.
So I think the deck's okay.
And this is not each of these decks is not a step above the deck behind it. It's they're all pretty much on the same level most of the time.
I think this is more about what we have had success with and what we like to play, and less about rules that you should apply to. I mean, if you're having a great time with backup,
play it, crush it. I'm sure you're probably a better player than me.
Probably. And I've certainly lost to a lot of the decks that I'm bashing right here. I think for me, I would put Phyrexians at 7 because I just don't really like building the deck for whatever reason. I don't like Phyrexian Censor. I find that card annoying. I think it hurts me as much or more as it hurts my opponent.
Yeah, you do have to have probably 8 or 9 Phyrexians at least to really be able to do anything with it.
And I come to this weird inflection point where it's should I take the Phyrexian 2/2 flyer for 3, or should I take the obviously better creature that's not a Phyrexian, like the Bola Slinger or something? Yeah. And I take the Bola Slinger, and then I end up with 6 Phyrexians in my deck and 2 Sculpted Perfections, and it's this just isn't that good.
So that was our opinion on blue, green, and black, white. I don't.
8 and 7.
Yeah, but maybe neck and neck.
Yeah.
I really like the Simic Signpost just because he's got a 5-butt, which is really nice. A 5-butt flyer, which if he does nothing else but be a wall, is pretty useful in this format.
He's better than we gave him credit for because he has vigilance. I've had him be a 3/5 flyer a bunch of times, and I've put 1 backup token on him and had him be a 2/6 that's just a nightmare for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah.
So he's not. We were right to be underwhelmed, but
he's something opponents don't want to spend removal on.
You know
so
what?
He'll stick around.
The other thing that's good about him is he wheels a lot. Yeah. So you don't have to take him highly, and sometimes you end up with 2 in your deck, and you're very glad to take it.
Yeah.
So next, you said Rakdos. Is that right?
Yeah. I want Rakdos to be good in this deck because there's so many of these little synergy tools. The Stormclaw Rager, I believe, is the Rakdos guy that
we were dead wrong on that. I think you liked it better than me.
Yeah.
In episode 1, I was kind of the sorcery speed makes it so bad.
Does suck.
It does suck.
But so the problem with him is that he is competing at the same slot with the Huntmaster.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much just a better card.
Yeah.
The Huntmaster will lock down the board given the opportunity pretty well with just sacking the blocker, bringing it back. And then incidentally getting synergy and growing off your Ichor. Whenever you sack a permanent, he gets a counter at the end of the turn.
Ichor Shade or something like that. Yeah,
3 or 4.
Which that one has a pretty low winning percentage, but I have lost to it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's not the bodies are really measly in this deck, which I feel like they just get run over if you don't win fast enough.
I feel like a card that deck really likes is Invasion of Olgratha, the one that deal 3, gain 3 life.
Yeah.
For 5.
That card just feels so overcosted.
I mean, it is. It's kind of bad.
Yeah.
But they have been able to flip it into a 3/3, and then that one can be pretty tough because it's whenever a creature an opponent dies, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff in there that's obviously really good for it, both of the 1-drops. I think this is like the best place for the black 1-drops, the 1/1 lifelinker and the one
backup.
that backup.
Yeah.
But
the key card to me is Furnace Rains.
Yeah, sure.
That's like the really powerful play in this deck is to take one of their creatures and sack it, and then get a treasure, which you can use to sack for most of the other effects as well. So that's like, if I can get 2 or 3 of those, maybe I'll go the distance, but it's hard without enough of them.
There are a lot of free and cheap sack outlets too, I think, that are pretty reliable, like Dredge Recycler,
and then the 2 uncommons that are usually available. There's almost never 2 people in the Rakdos archetype. I feel like I see the Stormclaw Rager wheeling pretty regularly.
Yeah. So I would agree with you. I just feel like I get run over with this deck, and it's probably because black is a little too contested when I've drafted it, and I haven't had enough removal to control the game. But it is a little more mid-rangey, and in that you kind of need like a Breach the Multiverse or multiple Unseal the Necropolis or something that's going to give you a lot of value, not just a little
big
value.
Top end.
Yeah.
Because, Judith, even if you pick her up, and Jury and all these Rakdos cards that give you value, it doesn't generate enough value to compete with some of the other bombs in this format.
Now, Judith is really, really good.
Yeah, great. Especially in this deck. This is the only deck she really goes in, but she just needs more. You need Breach the Multiverse. You need a couple of the black 7-drops, what's his name? The Menace backup 2.
Oh, sure. The
Swamp
Cycler, yeah.
He's great in this deck just because you need top end, and there's not a lot of other alternatives in red. And, I guess the Mountain Cycler also is your other top end.
Sure. I mean, it's just a great card, but if you get the like Hoarding Dragon perfect finisher for a deck like this, Breach maybe. I do think you can play a 7-mana card in this deck.
You want to
have a little long game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Rakdos, but it's not aggro. It's like Rakdos grind and maybe
Rakdos grind.
Ping and like do a little bit.
And the Javelineer is a pretty solid card in this deck.
Yeah, I like him in a lot of decks.
It's pretty scary when you see your opponent play it if you don't have an answer to it. I think that the theme here is decks that are like solid, but maybe have sort of a weird game plan, or they're asking you to kind of like spread yourself a little too thin. In the way that Gruul always is, the battle deck, I think, would be my next one.
Sure.
It's just kind of unfocused. Like, they're not bad cards, but I almost never find a reason to put red and green together unless those are the obviously open colors.
Honestly, this could be lower than some of these others, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Geoderm is a fine card. It's a 4/4 haste, like base. We don't hate that.
Yeah, multiples of that will make a good deck.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing where battles are good enough.
Yeah.
I think that an archetype centered around them is going to struggle when other people are going to play battles.
Yeah.
So I could imagine the battle deck being absolutely brutal if you could, with any level of consistency, play like Invasion of Mercadia, on turn 2, and then attack and flip it. And maybe you have the Thrasher, the 2-drop that gets bigger when it attacks a battle.
Yep.
Maybe you have the Rampaging thing. And
I like the Blazing Historian in this deck too, just to make sure I have haste whenever things hit the battlefield.
But there aren't that many cheap battles. There's a couple of 2-drop battles. In general, 2-drop battles are pretty solid, but like
the good
I
battles
feel like this
are
deck
rare.
happens later.
Like all the battles you want, like Invasion of Ixalan is a great battle. But it's rare.
Yep.
The other one that gives you like the 8/8.
It's the Lortha, the big ass.
They're all the battles that you want are rare, so you're just not going to get all the critical ones. What's the Gruul battle turn into? Invasion of Emergon? I've never even bothered playing with it. It feels like,
oddly, that card is like sometimes maybe not worth flipping, and same thing with Invasion of Ixalan. I think those are both like, I don't know, 4/3s. It's just like, it's a lot of work.
Indestructible, I will say, they're
annoying.
I played. I had a deck with 2 of those, and it was pretty.
I played against a deck with 2 of them last night, and it was tough. But it was like I chumped for 2 turns, and then I just removed it in main phase, and it was like, all right,
Yeah, well, they didn't hold up their instant speeds.
Yeah, they didn't have enough instants.
And the other theme with a lot of these is that apart from the Simic deck, these are all more or less aggressive decks.
Yeah.
and this is just a long control format. So
yeah,
removal's winning here. So all of these other decks are going to be cards that have access to better removal in their colors, or just like a deeper suite of those cards.
Yeah. Sadly, at number 5, I think I would probably put my beloved Convoke. For a lot of reasons we've already said here.
Yeah.
Red isn't the deepest color. You end up really wanting the blue cards. I do think that if you get yourself a Lutri, a Brutaclad, there's a number of red-blue cards that are awesome and very strong and worth building around. I love Artistic Refusal. I love pretty much every Convoke card, like all the cards with Convoke on them.
Yep. And what's our key card here is the Spell Shaper, or not the key card, but the Signpost is the Joyful
2/3 that makes 2/1/1s.
Yep.
And I think I said, I bet this is like sneaky powerful. I think it's actually a really good 5-drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of gum, which is nice stuff to dork with.
And I always forget that it does it, but when you play a card with Convoke, it pings them for one.
Oh, right.
Pings their battles and them. Every time it's a surprise. I'm like, oh, nice. Okay.
I forgot about this.
I think one time I accidentally flipped a battle by doing that, and I was like, oh, my.
Bet they hated that.
Yeah. So I like it. I actually think it's incredibly fun to play, and one of the better homes for something like a Chrome Host Seed Shark, obviously.
Yep. Ramosian Greatsword.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'll gladly play the sword.
The wings, what do we...
Yeah, I don't play that card that much, but it is good.
Yeah. I would never play more than one copy, but...
Never.
It might be my 23rd surprise card, my flavor card.
I'm a little down on it, but I've seen it do work, and I trust people when they say that it's good. Someone put it on a Kenra Spell Spear against me and then flipped it, and it was like, game over.
Yeah.
Next, we got Green-Black Incubate.
It's a good place to be. Mostly because you're in green, which means, and you're in black. Really, this is a deck where I'm very rarely in just purely green-black.
Exactly.
I'm in green-black-white for Abzan and kind of like a full Incubate suite, or I'm in Sultai just to have a better control thing.
Yep.
And this kind of goes back to that, like, when I'm playing green, this is a control format, so green is maybe my, like, spine color, but I'm splashing everything. I'm playing my Blighted Burgeoning and just... fixing and playing a bunch of good control cards.
Yeah, and interestingly for me, it's sort of been the other way, where it's like I'm picking a lot of good black cards and maybe hoping to be blue-black, but then, okay, a couple of green cards come along, and so maybe I end up with like 6 green cards in a deck that has a lot of black.
Yeah. This is like one of the best rares you can pick up.
Yeah, so...
It's dirty.
Gliss is really, really strong, and Skitherix, the Blight Dragon, another fun card that I've seen do a lot of work. So it's okay. I haven't actually played a lot of the Elvish Vat Keeper.
I think he's fine. Like a perfectly good card for this, or any green-black splashing, whether that's... I think it fits best with Sultai or Abzan.
Yeah. And I think that does kind of give you a window into what how the deck kind of operates. I've played against people and been a little bit like, okay, because... They'll play him and they'll use the second ability. It's like pay 5 to put two additional +1. So they'll turn like a 2/2 into a 4/4.
Double, I think, not just 2.
Is it okay? Yeah, it's double.
Doubles, yeah.
So yeah, it turns a 2/2 into a 4/4. And I remember being like, wow, you paid 5 mana for 2 counters? That does not seem good. But it's pretty resilient. It's pretty deep. It can go in a lot of different directions. And like you said, splashing becomes very easy, and black has the best removal. So you're going to be all right if you play this color pair. We're into the top 3 now.
Yes.
I think I would put third from the top, Knights.
Okay.
What do you think? It's lower for you, right?
Yeah, Knights is a little bit lower for me, but I do think that Knights is the best aggressive deck. And that comes back to what I said at the very beginning, which is Blue-White Flyers is just like an evergreen good deck. And that's kind of... not necessarily where this deck ends up, but it's like evasive blue-white creatures that just get in before you can get to the control stage of the game.
One thing that I like about it is that blue-white doesn't have to be Knights to be good. There's the Raft deck where you don't care how many Knights you have, but you've got all the good interaction. White isn't necessarily the deepest color, but it does have Sunfall.
Yeah.
And I like the option of being able to play Sunfall with consistency. Norn's Inquisitor is a very, 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 very good card.
Yeah, Norn's Inquisitor is great.
Yeah, so I think it's like, it just kind of depends how open white is, but I think it's a little deeper than it might seem, and I am okay with playing Phyrexians if the blue's not there.
Most of the colors have a common removal. For white, that's going to be the Pacifism effect, Realmbreaker's Grasp.
Yeah, which I'm not.
Uncommon is the Seal from Existence.
There's a number of. So there's like the Elspeth's Smite, which is solid.
Yeah, Elspeth's Smite.
I would argue Take Flight operates a lot like a
Aerial
spell.
Boost.
Or Aerial Boost. I keep calling it Take Flight. Yeah, Aerial Boost. There's Cut Down and Realmbreaker's Grasp are probably the main. Oh, and then Seal from Existence. Yeah, which is pretty good.
Yeah. I'm just trying to compare that to like green has Tandem Takedown and Cosmic Hunger, right?
I actually don't like those cards that much.
I would take Cosmic Hunger most of the time over Tandem Takedown.
Yeah. I've just, and it's probably just bad play, but I've just found myself in situations where like my creature's not big enough to kill their creature.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be playing Green Stompy for that card to work. But white and black, obviously, as in every format, typically have the deepest removal suite. But blue has so many in this set, which is really
so many options.
They don't deserve it.
Yeah. Blue is a really powerful, and the 2 mana enchantment that strips abilities.
Stasis Field?
Yeah, it's like miles better than Realmbreaker's Grasp because it removes the abilities. How many times have you put Realmbreaker's Grasp on something like Glissa and it doesn't matter? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep incubating.
Still happen.
So
I don't care that it's now a defender with 0-2 toughness.
Yeah. That kind of lays it out there for you. And that card does look kind of subpar.
Yeah.
But because there's so many bombs, that effect ends up being really powerful.
I agree, 100%. I would take Stasis Field over Realmbreaker's Grasp most of the time.
And a lot of this is that Marshal of Zhalfir outperformed what even we expected. I think we were pretty high on the card when we saw it, but
Blue White Knights,
Lord, the Lord for 2 mana that taps something down.
We love that.
It's
effect.
Absurd. Yeah. That's absurdly good. And what I will say is that I'm not sure if it's worth being Knights if you don't have him. There have been a couple of times where I'm like, oh well, Knights seem kind of open. I'm going to build the Knights, and then I never get a Marshal, and the deck just sucks. Yeah. So, the final 2. I'm calling it Sultai. Okay, yeah. Because that's what I just keep drafting Sultai decks, but it's blue green, play the bombs. Yeah. Whatever you get past in pack 3
color
lots of
fits
fixing
in here.
Take your dual lands.
Yeah.
It's viable. It's good. Like, don't do something stupid. Don't play all the colors just to play all the colors.
Yeah, don't play 5 cards of each color, but
you have to
build
have
a responsible deck that has some sort of color progression to it.
But it's very strong, and I had a deck last night that was I first picked running Realmbreaker, and then I actually got Realmbreaker, the actual card.
Okay, great.
And ended up with like a Breach the Multiverse.
Just mill them.
So yeah, I was like, dang, I'm just gonna go ahead and mill y'all out.
Yeah.
But then lots of good blue, and so it was like green blue as my main 2 colors, splashing the black for the bombs and the removal, and just felt like just so nice to play. I felt like I had an answer to everything my opponent threw at me.
I've had a lot of fun with 5-color decks or 3-color decks. Teamer is another one that I've been playing a lot of, which is red instead of black here.
Sure.
Just because I'll get a bit Borborygmos and Fibblethip, and I love that card. He's so fun, and it's so great when someone tries to remove him, and I just slide him right back into my deck. The turning all your lands into shocks is just so valuable.
So the last one is like probably no surprise to anyone
that's played the format.
Blue black graveyards, right? I think,
which is interesting because the actual like theme for the deck is irrelevant. No one plays the have 8 cards or more.
No.
But it's just the power level of the cards themselves before that is so strong.
Well, I'll say like the number of cards in the graveyard thing is irrelevant, but not necessarily having things in the graveyard.
Yeah, like Halo Forager.
One part of why this is so good is a lot of the cards that hit graveyards hit both graveyards, and that's a lot more flexibility than we normally get from these kinds of cards. Yeah. But no, there's a couple of key cards that make this deck kind of absurdly value. The value is like way ahead, but Unsealed the Necropolis.
Yep. Great card.
Jumped out really quickly as a great way to win a grindy match.
Instant speed also on that, which is just so crazy.
Yeah. And when they work through all of your stuff and they've got like 1 card in hand and you still have the Unseal, you're like, cool, you're going to have to top deck your way into something great because I've got everything I need to win. Invasion of Amonkhet is brilliant.
Backbreaking.
Yeah, it's a game-winning card, and it's a 3-drop.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to flip. It's a 2-for-1 immediately.
Yep.
It's just so good. It's splashable.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't even have to flip it, but when you do, it's usually game over.
Yeah. Obviously, Preening Champ is really, really good and has nothing to do with the strategy
theme or anything,
here,
but you get to play it.
Perfect. Your random like curve filler is also just absurdly value generating.
The Dimir rare card also, Hidetsugu and Kairi, is
he's really good.
Really strong.
Yeah.
5/4 flyer is pretty hard to deal with in this format. I've yet to get him, but I've had him eat my lunch a couple times.
And there's lots of just very consistently solid cards like Cyber Cryptomancer, giving you a way to make them waste their removal spell. Lots of little cards that mill, but then 2 or 3 cards that put cards from your graveyard back on your deck. So milling your opponent out becomes a very viable way to win a long game.
With the Gorilla Flyer will do that. Put a card back on top of your library, as well as the Halo Charge Scob.
Yeah. What's so powerful about this deck is it can go in a lot of different directions. Like
I want all the blue-black cards, every single one. Temporal Cleansing. I want Halo Forager. Obviously all the uncommons are really strong in this deck. And then I'd love to pick up a weird.
The weird is really good.
Yeah.
A couple other that I'm thinking about. It kind of decimates your opponent's hand, and it's doing a lot of damage to your opponent's hand, which fuels the graveyard thing. But Nezumi Informant is a very good 2-drop that makes them discard, right? Then you've got Invasion of Eldraine, which makes them discard 2, and turns out is pretty playable.
Yeah. I haven't played it too much because it's 4.
It's 4 mana, discard 2. It's pretty strong. I heard others say it. I tried it, and I was like, okay, you're right. I get it. Amonkhet makes them discard a card.
Amonkhet's the most upsetting card for me, I think. I think it's the most powerful uncommon.
Yes.
It hurts so bad.
Yeah, it's really good. And then it also has a lot of recursion. I absolutely underestimated the Halo Forager.
Oh my gosh. Getting both graveyards is nuts.
Yeah, the first time I cast it, and I was like, well, I wonder what I can play. And then I looked at my opponent's graveyard and saw like a 2-mana removal spell, a 3-mana removal spell, a 4-mana removal spell. I was like, we were worried about, will you be able to play it on curve and, still get something of value out of it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, I don't care about that whatsoever. If I'm playing it on curve, that's just because I'm probably about to win the game and, I want to put a little bit more pressure on. But man, the cards won me games on its own, and I will maybe like ditch my color paired and switch into it if I see that thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's so strong.
I think it's rare to find that blue-black is open, though.
That's yes and no, because it's like it's probably not open, but the colors are so strong that they can support
multiple
couple players.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
One of the best decks that I did, I was like a straight 3-0. I first picked Rona. And going back to the whole DFC thing, the person to my left 100% saw that I first picked Rona.
Yeah.
And then the person to my right saw I first picked Rona, and everybody just stayed out of my way. And
that's beautiful. I love to pick a dual face early on and just stake my claim at the LGS.
Yeah, in a weird way, I actually think that that's very helpful to you. If you can just kind of announce the table, I'm doing this thing. Yeah. There's no way that you're going to...
No one's mad about it either, because they're happy to be like, okay, well, I'm going to get a better deck too if I don't play that same color.
Yeah, totally. And I was happy to pass... I passed him like Niv Mizzet and all of the dual lands, and I was just like, give me good stuff and I'll let you play, an insane 5-color deck.
Well, that's our list, folks.
That's our list. Let us know if we're missing something. I would actually really love if anybody has like insight into
some of the
lower rated color pairs. Yeah, if you're having success with them, like what are we missing?
And once again, not that they're bad decks or you can't do well with them, but I think they're harder to bring everything together with.
No, and we're ranking these in terms of like strength, but I also think that the order would shift a little bit when it comes to like what are you drafting right now and what are you winning with right now? Because
I've got a Rakdos deck right now.
Yeah, you have a Rakdos deck right now. I have been playing a lot less of blue-black. I felt like, you're right, once it became really clear that it was the best deck, and I drafted a couple of like middling decks where maybe it wasn't that open, now I want to go into blue-black. It's like, I'll position myself to go there, but I don't really want to go into it unless I start seeing the cards that are really premium. Not like one Preening Champion, but...
Yeah. a Final Flourish in pack 8 or something.
Yeah. So I've been drafting a lot of green lately.
Well, green's hard. You just play the big guys. Play big boys.
Smash them down.
Yep.
Until next week.
Until next week. We'll see ya. This has been All Cards Considered.
All Cards Considered.
All Cards Considered.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.